What's going on, dudes and dudettes? So, yes, USC did make a couple big signings at the tail end of the National Signing Day, the early part. They were able to get five-star Domani Jackson back. He did commit to USC, but decommitted to look at other schools. But luckily, he did return, and he's probably one of the top-rated guys they are going to get this year in this class. So definitely happy he's there. But also, they did pick up a four-star safety from Las Vegas in Zion Branch. It's a pretty good guy. Some people say he's probably a five-star player, but definitely has a lot of talent, the correct build for his safety, and even his brother, who plays wide receiver, is coming out of high school next season, and he's looking to make his commitment at the end of this week, and most likely will be choosing USC as well, which is really cool because he's like a five-star wide receiver next year anyway, so that's good for USC's future. Then, yes, the Duke Blue Devils had a couple games last week. First, they beat Appalachian State pretty easily, 92-67. Same normal guys, Paolo Moncaro, AJ Griffin. All those guys had a pretty nice, victory overall, all the young dudes. But then the next game, a couple days later, I think it was actually Saturday, against Cleveland State, had to be canceled because Cleveland State had too many COVID guys. And then I believe they got, who was the next team? Some team in Maryland called Loyola, which I thought was always Loyola was in Chicago, but apparently it's a Maryland team. But then the next day they got COVID. Then I was always wondering why Duke was never playing an ex-players team in Northwestern, but they actually scheduled Northwestern. Then the next day Northwestern had COVID, of course, so they were able to settle with, I believe the team is close by in North Carolina, called Elon University. They really suck, so luckily Duke was able to at least play somebody for all the fans that got to go there while the students are away from school right now because they're done testing. So now a lot of the fans get to go there and fill up the whole entire arena. So Coach K definitely wanted them to get there for his last season. And luckily they were able to get that victory, 87-56, pretty handily as well. Didn't really have any doubt they were going to win by 30, and they did. So overall, it's a pretty good week for Duke basketball. Then a couple of defensive backs for USC. Chris Steele, one of the top guys at USC on the defensive side for a while, is deciding to go to the NFL draft, so good luck to him. He was definitely a big-time player I wanted at USC while coming out of St. John's Bosco, and luckily he was there, never really developed into the lockdown corner I thought he was going to be, but hopefully better coaching and better systems in the NFL will help him out. And then Greg Johnson, another really talented guy who's been at USC for like almost 5 years now, it seems. But yeah, he's a very talented dude. Also from LA, was a 4 or 5-star player. Played very well, but always had injuries, whether it was his shoulder and then eventually had a knee or ACL type of thing last year. Played pretty hurt this year also. He probably could have came back for another year if he wanted to, but decided he might as well just take his talents to the NFL and actually get paid a lot more money while still being injured. And I guess he is seeing the projections that he might get drafted too, so that's good to see. Luckily and hopefully both of these ex-USC guys will get drafted. And then Lakers signed a couple of players because a lot of guys are on their COVID list, but one main guy they did sign was Isaiah Thomas, who was an ex-Laker as well, but he was an ex-All-Star in the NBA, played very well for like Boston, Phoenix a little bit, but then went out the NBA because of injuries. Luckily, I think he played one game in the G League like last week and scored 42 points. So of course the Lakers were the first team to jump up on it because they had a lot of missing dudes, so they needed a lot more bodies to help out. He's officially signed a full contract. He was on a 10-day deal, but now he's there officially. So we'll see how that goes the rest of the year. And then they also signed a guy from their G League South Bay Lakers team. I believe he's a guard in Mason Jones. Never really heard of him or seen him on the team, so we'll see what he can do, but I'm pretty sure he's just there as a very last resort for any of the Lakers players going down. But as I mentioned, yes, a lot of Lakers players were added to the COVID list. A lot of guys were added, and then the very next day or two, they were taken off. But a lot of the guys who are still on there are Avery Bradley, the guard, Austin Reeves, the guy who had a big game for them right before he went on there. Probably went out and celebrated and got COVID, which sucks. But yes, he's out. Even their head coach, Frank Vogel, made the COVID list, and I believe it was last Sunday, David Fizdale, the assistant coach who everyone thinks is going to get the job once they fire Vogel, got a chance to, show what he can do, and they played pretty well, especially against Chicago, but ended up losing that game, and of course the ex-USC player, DeMar DeRozan, had like 18 points in the fourth quarter alone to beat him. So yes, I think he's taking it very seriously that they wanted to make a trade for him and they didn't. And he's very salty about it because both times that he's got to play the Lakers this year, he's gotten over 28 or 38 points, something like that. So yeah, the Lakers are retarded. And then, yes, when it comes to Anthony Davis, of course, the other day we found out that he has some type of MCL sprain in his knee. So he's going to be out the least amount of at least 4 weeks. So of course, with all this trade speculation and crap going on, he ends up getting injured and is obviously not going to play a Christmas Day game. Even that's up in the air according to the NBA because that might get canceled or postponed as well, which is crazy without the amount of guys that are getting COVID right now. I was not surprised that they would have done it before, but I've been saying that they should just stop, have a pause for about a month, make sure everybody's fine, and don't allow these guys to go off and do stuff while in season, but then you play with people's rights and shizzle, whatever. Then the USC head coach, Andy Einfeld, received a contract extension. I know a lot of other teams who made some firings earlier in the year were looking to hire him, but USC locked him up at least 2 more years, I believe. So it's like 2024 or 2025, 2026, one of those years where it's the last year of his deal. So not too shabby to keep him around. He's been getting a couple of good guys, but yes, USC did have a couple games, and they played against UC Irvine early last week and barely got that victory. It was like 66-61, so really tough victory. They were down more than 10 points. UCI is a pretty good school out here in Southern California, at least in their conference, the Big West, I believe it's still called. It might be called something else, Mountain West maybe. But yeah, they're still one of the top teams in that conference, so I was not surprised at all that it went down to the wire. And then a couple of days later in Phoenix, they got to play in some type of mini tournament and were able to beat Georgia Tech, which is pretty good. Got a nice win against them. It was 67-53, a little bit more in hand, not as close as a lot of people thought it was going to be. And Boogie Ellis as well finally stepped up after a couple of games of struggling, but yes, luckily he was able to step up, and because of those victories, USC ended up moving up 2 spots from number 10, so now they are the number 8th ranked team in the nation, which is pretty cool. But then we also found out some crappy news that their game against Oklahoma State in a couple of days is actually going to be canceled because of COVID-19 spreading within the Trojans program, which is bad because we don't know how long they're going to be out for, and they did not mention any of the players as well. Maybe all of them got it, but whatever. So looks like as of right now, USC basketball is paused. It's not canceled officially, but hopefully they could keep that top 10 ranking as well for at least the next couple of weeks. And yes, USC football did lose out to a guy they had hired to be their running backs coach, Tashard Choice, for about a week. He was even there last Sunday when they had a bunch of recruits and was helping them recruit, but then all of a sudden he chose to become the running backs coach at Texas, which is kind of dumb in my opinion. But yeah, it's kind of weird that you work and still recruit and then all of a sudden you're gone like that, but whatever, we could find a better replacement in my opinion. And then USC has also officially hired an offensive line coach in Josh Henson. He was recently at Texas A&M as their O-line coach, so that's a pretty good program, and they got a lot of good recruits, especially the past couple years as well. So I'm pretty sure he was part of that recruiting cycle that they do down there. So hopefully that'll be a good thing for USC in the future. And yeah, I'm looking forward to that. And then, yes, sadly, the rookie power forward from USC, Evan Mobley, was put on the COVID list, even though he was already dealing with a hip issue. They put him on there because eventually he did get COVID or something. So it's gonna be out at least this week, hopefully not longer. So we're hoping to get him back soon, especially for my fantasy team. And then ex-Chargers wide receiver Vincent Jackson, who sadly was found dead. I forget if it was this year or last year, but within this crappy COVID years, they had found him, and they had believed it to be, done by himself. Maybe CTE was involved. So definitely like taking so many hits to the head as a football player, even though that's crazy because he is a wide receiver, but still, take hits to the head even though he's 6'5". But yes, sadly, they did find out from his brain that he did have stage 2 CTE, so that was pretty bad. It just sucks that those guys have to go through that, and it's just bad that they still allow them to play even though they get hit like that. They should definitely take some more time off, in my opinion. And then Chargers, yes, have placed more guys on the COVID list, even though they recently got some guys back like Rashawn Slater, but they added Joey Bosa once again to the list. Austin Eckler, the running back, was added. The starting center, Corey Linsley, was added to the list. And then also the backup quarterback, Chase Daniel, was added to the list. So, hopefully it's nothing that's going to keep these guys out past the game. But I believe head coach Brandon Staley did say that Bosa was officially out for Sunday, which didn't make sense to me unless he was dealing with something else like an injury. But we'll have to find out about that later, I guess. And then during last week's Thursday night game, in the first quarter, one of the first drives that the Chargers had, they went for it on 4th down, threw it to their tight end, Donald Parham Jr. He went down, kind of awkwardly lost the ball. They did not complete the 4th down, but then he was still down on the ground. Nobody really knew why. And then they put him on a stretcher, and he was shaking and stuff. So it was pretty weird thing that happened in that game. And then they found out that eventually he did have a concussion, but it was pretty crazy how his body reacted that way to it. But yeah, apparently he's fine at home, everything like that. Pretty crazy situation. But yeah, speaking on that loss, they definitely missed a lot of opportunities. I think on 4th down alone, they went for it at least 4 to 5 times, if I'm not mistaken, and especially within the red zone where they could have gotten points, which, yes, Brandon Staley is still defending that if he's going for it because you need touchdowns to beat a team like Kansas City, even though those 12 points would have just been enough to beat them before overtime. Once I knew the game was going into overtime, that it was going to be over because the Chargers are dumb. But yeah, it's fine that he's saying he made the correct decisions, and that's how they're gonna make their game plan the whole entire time while he's still there going for it on 4th down, all this stuff. But I still think you need to take points when you can, especially against any team, because the Chiefs are a team, if they get down by a certain number of points this year, they kind of just give up. Before in the past, yes, they did make some miracle plays, but those few miracle plays were enough to get them into overtime and the victory. If you just had those points, this wouldn't even be a conversation. You'd be leading the AFC West and probably like one of the top 2 or 3 teams in the AFC playoffs. But yes, this is the crap we got to deal with. As of right now, it is crazy. And there was also like a Joshua Kelly, ex-UCLA running back. He tried to jump in and left the ball exposed, and fumbled the ball when it could have been a touchdown. Yes, the ex-USC player on defense, Uchenna Nwosu, intercepted the ball from Mahomes the very next play, but still, there would have been a big difference if he had scored, but that's UCLA for you. And then, yes, there was a pretty interesting fake trade that this website did, including the Lakers, where they would somehow get these players, Buddy Hield, Marvin Bagley III, and Tristan Thompson from the Sacramento Kings. And then they would only have to give up Russell Westbrook and Talen Horton-Tucker, most likely a first-round pick or a couple of picks as well. Money-wise, this does work out, and especially for even a team like Sacramento, they might not want Westbrook for the future. He does have this year and next season, but next season is a player option, and I'm pretty sure he's not going to want to stick around there anyway, so they're really going to be saving $40 to $50 million, so it kind of could be enticing for them, but they are giving up on Bagley, who they drafted number 2 overall out of Duke, and he still hasn't panned out, but he also wasn't given a lot of good playing time or situations with the old coaching staff as well. So I would love if Marvin Bagley, ex-Duke player, was on the Lakers more than Buddy Hield for three-point shooting from the Kings, but I don't know. I don't think it's going to happen. It's going to benefit the Lakers too much, so I don't think they would do that in their own division. Then, yes, speaking of Lakers games, the other day they did play the Mavericks. They won on a last-second buzzer beater in overtime by Austin Reeves, as I mentioned the other day that he had a big game. Yes, that was pretty cool to see. It's not really a buzzer beater because the game was tied, and if he missed it, it would have just went into the next overtime, but I guess it's a game winner, not a buzzer beater. But yeah, overall, pretty interesting game. They were down by a bit, came back, got that victory, but that's pretty much it. You couldn't really discuss the other game against Chicago because they ended up losing, even though they had a chance to win that game as well, but they lost, which sucked. And to finish off with some miscellaneous news, yes, the guitarist for New Found Glory. Recently, I didn't even know about this till I saw it on Google or Yahoo's main thing, where apparently he had a surgery this past week to remove a pretty rare cancer that he apparently had in a tumor that was kind of connected near his liver and everything. His story is that his wife supposedly found him unconscious or non-responsive while he was sleeping, and then she eventually called 911. They found out that for some reason, like, his glucose and blood levels were like really low, but his heartbeat rate was really high, or his blood pressure was really high. So they didn't really know what was going on until they did more tests and found that tumorous cancer thing. Luckily, they had surgery to remove it. Everything looks a-okay so far. He was able to leave the hospital a couple of days ago. I think he is going to have to go back for some more treatment and stuff, but as of right now, it does look like it only went to that one area and did not spread. So hopefully that's the only bit of news we could hear from that, other than that nothing else is wrong with that guy, because if he were to go down in New Found Glory, he's the main songwriter, not only lyrically but instrumentally as well. So I think New Found Glory would definitely end if he were to go, which would suck, but luckily he's still here. So yes, thanks for watching, people. Like and subscribe, comment down below, let me know what y'all think. Have a great rest of your day. Bye.